The sun beat down mercilessly on the Blue Mountains that November morning, casting long shadows over the dramatic escarpments and eucalyptus groves. It was here, at the edge of Govette's Leap Lookout, that hikers discovered an abandoned car parked slightly askew. The driver's door was ajar, swaying in the wind like a broken limb, and inside the vehicle lay the ordinary detritus of a seemingly interrupted life. A leather wallet with a driver's license still inside, a mobile phone out of battery, and a half-empty water bottle resting in the cup holder. No signs of struggle, no goodbye note, just a single set of footprints leading toward the edge of the cliff and stopping abruptly at the precipice. From the very first news reports, the story captured national attention. A 42-year-old man named Mark Thompson, a mid-level financial advisor from Sydney, had seemingly vanished during a solitary bushwalk. His wife, Emily, appeared on television within hours, eyes red-rimmed, voice shaking as she pleaded for anyone with information to come forward. The headlines wrote themselves. Missing hiker believed dead in tragic cliff fall. Search and rescue teams were dispatched immediately, combing the rocky slopes and dense underbrush below the lookout. Helicopters buzzed overhead, scanning for signs of a body. Divers were lowered into water holes. Sniffer dogs were brought in, yet day after day, nothing was found. What none of them could have imagined was that Mark Thompson wasn't at the bottom of the cliffs or lost in the scrub. He was sitting comfortably in a dim Sydney apartment just 30 miles away, wearing track pants and eating microwaved noodles while watching his own disappearance unravel on the evening news. Mark had planned his escape for nearly a year. Dissatisfied with his life, burdened by debt, and estranged from his wife in all but name, he had begun researching how to vanish without a trace. Forums, obscure blogs, even online communities for would-be escape artists. He devoured them all. He learned how to minimize digital footprints, how to access cache without triggering alerts, how to obtain convincing fake documents. He kept a burner phone, slowly withdrew funds over several months, and used a fake name to rent a small apartment under the radar. Everything had to be meticulous. He picked Govette's Leap for its dramatic drop and the known difficulty of recovering bodies in the area. It was, in his mind, the perfect place to die, without dying. Each night, as the search intensified, Mark reclined in a second-hand armchair, watching his face flash across the screen. Beloved husband, devoted son, respected colleague. He listened as experts speculated on what might have gone wrong. He even laughed sometimes, laughed when strangers called him gentle, when the local priest described him as selfless. He hadn't felt truly seen in years, but now, in absence, he was being sanctified. The crowning jewel of his deception came a few weeks later, his own memorial service. Wearing dark sunglasses, a baseball cap, and borrowed clothes, Mark entered the church through a side door and slipped into the back row. His heart pounded, not with guilt, but with thrill. From just a few feet away, he watched Emily, dressed in black, holding their daughter's hand with white-knuckled grief. His mother wept openly as the slideshow began. Photos of childhood birthdays, beach holidays, family Christmases, they flickered on the wall as the congregation murmured prayers. The eulogies came next. A childhood friend spoke of Mark's generosity. A former co-worker praised his work ethic. When the priest called him an angel taken too soon, Mark had to suppress a snort. He stayed until the very end, slipping out before anyone could turn and really see him. Had he stopped there, Mark might have gotten away with it. But for men like him, deception isn't a means to an end. It's the thrill itself. He began making mistakes. First, a careless transfer from an old bank account, just a small one, but it raised questions. Then, in a bar in Newtown, a drunken confession to a stranger that he wasn't really Mark. The stranger didn't believe him at first. Why would he? But weeks later, curious and unconvinced, the man tipped off police. Still, the trail might have gone cold if not for what investigators found when they finally secured a warrant and raided the apartment. The tiny space was littered with evidence. A dusty laptop revealed damning Google searches. How to disappear completely. Create new identity Australia. Can you collect life insurance if body not found? Faking death for insurance fraud. Clippings of newspaper articles about his own disappearance were taped to the wall like some macabre scrapbook. Fake IDs, maps, receipts. The illusion unraveled in a single day. Mark was arrested without resistance, still wearing the same sweatpants from the week before. The media had a field day. Ghost man captured. Back from the dead, the Mark Thompson hoax. The public who had once mourned him now wanted blood. The government announced that his disappearance had cost over $250,000 in taxpayer-funded search and rescue operations. Emily, who had since moved in with her sister, was reportedly devastated, not just by the betrayal but by the realization that she had truly begun to grieve. Her anger burned quietly. She refused to testify, but she attended every day of the trial, sitting stone-faced as Mark avoided her gaze. The court proceedings were brutal. Prosecutors painted Mark as a narcissistic fraud who had manipulated an entire nation. The defense, for their part, tried to argue emotional distress, claiming he had been under immense psychological strain. It didn't matter. The judge was unmoved. "This was not the desperate act of a broken man," he said in his final remarks. "This was arrogance, plain and simple. A man who believed himself smarter than everyone else." Mark was sentenced to 3 years in prison for fraud, identity theft, and obstructing police operations. But prison was not the worst of it. The real sentence was the one imposed by everyone who had once loved him. His mother refused to speak to him. His daughter, only 6 years old when he vanished, would barely remember him. Friends who had carried his coffin now crossed the street to avoid him. He became a pariah, a walking ghost in a city that no longer had a place for him. And yet some say Mark didn't stay lost for long. After serving just under 2 years, he was released quietly and vanished once again. No parole violations, no trace. Occasionally, hikers report seeing a man near the cliffs of Gavet's Leap. Same height, same eyes, same hollow look. Others whisper about sightings in Bali, or Buenos Aires, or along the Queensland coast. A few even claim he's returned to Sydney, walking among crowds who don't recognize him, passing the church where his funeral was held, pausing sometimes at the cemetery where his gravestone still stands. Wherever he is, the truth remains. The man known as Mark Thompson succeeded in erasing himself once. But in doing so, he didn't just lose his name or his past, he lost his soul. Somewhere between the man who faked his death and the one who stood in court, the real Mark disappeared. And this time, no one is looking for him.